Hi there, this is Popo, I hope you're fine. Welcome back to the Merchess Hydra tournament, round 2. And today we're going to review the two games played between e3Gewinnt and Lolo. So let's get started. Okay, so for this first game, e3Gewinnt gets the white pieces with the Dragon's faction, and Lolo gets the black pieces with the Demon's faction. A quick reminder of the factions maybe. The Dragon faction is a faction that allows you to get compensations every time one of your pieces die, so materially speaking. And the Demons is a faction that is front-load asymmetrically based, so technically all the pieces gain stronger moves and asymmetric moves going on the front, so they can lead some devastating attack, but they are very stupid to retreat, so if you fail your attack, basically you can straight up resign the game. Let's see how it goes. The game starts with Drake to f3 at the ready. We have pawn to e5, head to d4, pawn to d5, striking the center. And actually, the more the game is opened on the early game, the better it is for the demons. So we have head to d3 trying to defend, we have rook to f6 putting pressure, and now the Drake comes to c3. Something that could be interesting to try, even this looks not that good, is drag to d2 with the idea is to fianchetto that here, and then later you can try to get some pressure over here. So I don't know, something that could be tried. But in the game instead we have drag to c3, and okay, it looks tempting to go here, but after this you can try to reroute this way, and the demons would have a little less activity, because they don't have enough opportunity to strike in the center. So we have rook to c6, which is played, and now pawn to a4. Pawn to a4 is some kind of mysterious move here. Maybe, I don't know, you can try to go for this kind of fianchetto and try to get something the way, reroute this here, and transpose to what I would think, or even try to fianchetto there. Here, I mean, if there's a push, maybe the idea was to route this later once this is developed, I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know, here makes sense because you want the thing not to go here, but a4. Maybe he wants to get here, to get here with the egg, I don't know. So, mysterious move it is, but the more passive move, I mean, you play, the more aggressive the demons would be. And now we have imp to e6. Remember that the pattern of the demons are broken, so if you want to check the pattern, you just have to click on the piece, so, and you see starting from the black point where the piece is gonna go. Here is, for example, for the rook. When you see gray squares on the blade rune, for example, it means that the piece is limp. Okay, so here in this position after into e6, we have pawn to g3, so you're planning to fianchetto. We can't at the same point this Drake, but for now this is okay. But now we have rook to d4, and you have to be careful because there is a threat of capture. I mean, what thing could be great is that you trade the more possible. So for example, Drake captures d4, then captures, then you capture here, then I mean maybe the rook captures, then you capture, then I mean the devil captures, and somehow it tries to go here, then you just play pawn to f4. And somehow the game continues, and there's some chance that you can develop somehow your pieces and try to castle along this time. So maybe you want to develop that here, trying to put the pressure of the devil and force him to retreat. That would be a way to deal with this game. But in the game here, we have Wyvern to g2, so no trading any piece. So now the demons get advantage of this and play the Spire to h6 again. The pattern of the Spire is broken. So now the threat is to capture this way. So you have to defend this. If you try to get here, I mean, now this is just getting through. So directly we have pawn to h4, which is played. And you see that somehow the dragons start to experience some weakness on the position. So now we have pawn to takes e4, and again, what do you play here? Because I think you need to exchange a lot of pieces, so I think I would immediately go for the more possible trade I win. So let's take on d4 and try to trade the pieces, and if there's captures, this is even better. and you try to again trade the more possible and try to survive the position, else you're just gonna die in silver pain loss here. Remember that this is hanging, so this is interesting. But in the game, we have Ed takes e4, so no trading any piece. And now we have the last minor piece, the imp, which does the game. And I can already tell you that the dragons are gonna experience a very, very bad time just up now. Because after Wyvern to e3, now the attack strikes. We have imp to c4. With this move, you should have played pawn to b3, excuse me, and maybe fianchetto that. Be sure that the imp never goes to this square, because when this goes here, this is the start of the big mess. This is attacking this piece, this is attacking this piece, and there's no good way for the Hydra to get a good square. So maybe you put this here, now this is taken. So Hydra to c1 is forced, so even less in the attack, and now the trade begins. So we have rook takes f3, now we have king to f1. You can't really take that back, because this gets very complicated, because if you take back, then the imp captures with check, and now the king is attacked. This is hard to slide here, there would be a lot of trades here, so where do you go? Maybe you try to get here, then maybe there would be some kind of trade here. The game would continue, because now maybe they would slide here, and now this is a direct fork between two pieces. Like, you're not surviving this. So after this, the king goes back to f1, so they basically lost a piece. But now the rook goes to g4, and now this is threatening to capture this, and this is hard to defend. So now the Wyvern captures here and tries to get some compensation. But now the devil goes back to f6, and now this is threatening this and threat to jump and capture with mate at the same time. So now the Wyvern gets back to e3, but now, I mean, this is over for you, because now there is imp to e3, and now after Hydra takes e3, what do? Rook takes e3, and now king to e2. I mean, you can't capture this because of the rock pattern that would capture the king. So king to e2 is forced, and now the rook takes g2, and basically this is bye-bye, you're down 10% material. I mean, there's drake to d5, which is tempted, but we have the very nice imp takes d5, and after captures we have a rook to d4 check. The king is very forced to go back on e1. I mean, you can decide to climb up and try to bet on the fact that the demons would never catch you, but I have bad news for you. This is going to happen anyways. I don't know, if you decide to go, for example, here, now you're forced to get here, and then the Spire can join the game and try to mate you some way. So yeah, I think there's no hope of anything here. You're just losing the game. But in the game, we have king going back to f1, and then we have devil to f3, controlling every squares there to make threats everywhere. So we have egg to h2, but now we have rook to e3 check. The king is forced to go to h1, and now we have rook to e2, and this is in this position on move 21 that the demons won with checkmate. Like, what a game, I have to say. The demons are so powerful. So I really wait for the time the aliens would meet the demons, because these are two very aggressive factions indeed when the game is open. So now we'll move to the game 2, and you'll see that this game is also worse for other reasons. So let's move on to game 2 now. Okay, so for the second game, now Lolo gets the white pieces with the Kobolds faction, and e3Gewinnt gets the black pieces with the Vampires faction. So remember, the Kobolds faction allows you to dig into the ground, and when you rise up on the next turn, sometimes on multiple places, you're able to paralyze your opponent's unit that can't move or capture, sometimes both. On the other hand, the Vampires faction allows you to sacrifice your own pawns for activity, but also for a big attack that can allow you to control some big parts of the board. So the more pawns you have on your side, the more, I don't know, scary you are. So let's see how the game goes. The game starts with pawn to e4. We have Ghoul to e5, rat to f3, wolf to c6, rat to c3, wolf to f6, the 4-knight games. Now you have mole to b5 and Banshee to b4, and please be careful. If you play the very natural looking move pawn to d3, then the Banshee can take here with check, and after recapture, the wolf can take its own Ghoul and take the wolf, the mole on the same turn, thanks to the sacrificial strike of the blood jump. So be careful with this. So in the game, we have Mole takes c6, Ghoul takes c6, and now pawn to d3, defending rightly the square. We have a short castle, and now several moves can be tried. Mole to the d2, for example, short castle also, but Lolo don't have time to waste. I mean, he plays pawn to h4, and I mean, this move is a little scary here, because it allowed Ghoul to d5, which comes with big threats. I mean, it seems like you're just straight up hanging a pawn with a rat takes e5. Before this, okay, you have to be careful, because if you take that, then there's the Blood Wolf jump going for this, but with the Ghoul you think that you can take this, but not really. For example, here maybe Lolo thought that after a Ghoul to d4, he can decide to play a rat takes c6 threatening this, and here you can try to save your thing, but the Banshee would die. So you can play the wall line and take on the c3, but after captures, then there's captures with check. You put the mole to the way, but then you capture with this, so maybe you try to save your rat, but this is better to take, else say your opponent's gonna be too much material, but after captures, captures, and captures, the material is equal, but the vampires have much activity. So this is hard to deal with this position, even though the Kobolds are a tricky bastard. So maybe Lolo thought that this position was playable, but here, e3Gewinnt get a better plan with Wolf captures, then captures on c3, and now it threats discover attack with deadly stuff. So be very careful where you're gonna go. So here in this position, Lancer to d2 is tried, but now we have Wolf takes a2, so now it attacks a piece, and this is pinned, so only one move can be tried, is pawn to c3, but after Wolf captures c1, then captures c1 and Banshee to d6, technically the vampires are up a piece for a pawn. So the vampires are better, and this is time for the Kobolds to find something to do. So in this position, you have to be careful, because your rat is attacked, so you have to defend it, but rat to f3 is better, because you don't want to trade material at this point. But now the count goes to f6, and we have Lancer to c2. We have Banshee to g4, now trying to exchange the material, but of course this is refused, and rat to d4 is played. Now we have Banshee to e5, again wanting to exchange some material, but now the rat goes to b3. Here we have Ghoul to f5, trying to kick again the rat, but now we have the time where the Kobolds are going to mess around, and this is going to be funny. So we have Lancer grunts on e5. What happens here? Technically, every Kobold piece have a way to dig into the ground. So here this is a pattern where the Kobold, where the Lancer can dig. When it digs, it threats on the next turn to get to this square. So if you do nothing, for example, you play this, then it can capture. But by capturing this, by going on the square, it would rise, it would allow this special ability to go. And the special ability is that every piece connected to the Kobold, piece not pawn, would be paralyzed and can't move nor capture for 2 entire turns. And this is very strong. Maybe you can think that you can just go here. Only problem is that you still rise here, and this piece can still move nor capture. So you would get some advantage here for 2 turns. So in this position, we have come to e7, and now you can't really do that, because as everything's connected, you're just gonna be taken. I must lift, and you're just going to take that. So in this position, of course, Lancer goes to e3 played. Why it can go to e3? Because of the dance. The dance allow the Kobold faction that dig into the ground to just rise up range 2 compared to this piece. So the more close to the opponents the dance are, the better the Kobolds would be. So technically you're sliding and sliding up. So very interesting. So Lancer goes to e3 and now comes to f6. But this is not over, because now the Lancer targets f5, and if he unburrows now, this is devastating for the vampires. So the Ghoul is played to g6, so if you decide to go here, then you're going to be taken. So now the Lancer goes back to c2, and by going back and forth, somehow they lost a lot of tempies. So now we have Tom takes f7, and now this Tom is able to jump as a move. I would be the Kobolds player, I would start to fear a little. So we have then to A1 trying to attack on the side and try to claim this pawn, but now we have Ghoul to G5 trying to advance in deeper into the position. We have pawn to D4 trying to strike against the Banshee. The Banshee could decide to go here actually, and maybe there's this and this is kicked back. For example, it goes back here because you can't go here as this is a fork. But in the game, e3Gewinnt decided to play Banshee to d6, allowing the fork. And I wonder, is that this is meant or not? Because you're going to see later that the vampire gets no pawn field and somehow it held them. So pawn to e5 is played, Banshee captured, pawn captures and counter captures, and it creates a ghoul because it captures exactly one square away. So this is the way that you can create backs and ghouls. And now there are some threats on the board, but seems like the Kobolds seems not concerned about this, because they play pawn captures g5. But there's a real threat on the board, is taunt f4. And now I can assure you that this is the game over. Because now the threat is to go here, and after the king, let's say, decides to go back, then you put the count here, or even you can decide to slide the taunt here, and then you have to put the lancer somewhere, and then the count is going to go on the board. Like, you can straight up resign here. So something that you can try here is to play the pawn to f3, but after pawn to e3 check, the king can't really go here, else he can't really go here, excuse me, because this is defended this way. So it does to run here, but then the taunt can run to f2. And now this attacks the rat, and the rat has nowhere really to go. So if it decides to go here, then this is made to have here. So the rat would be Lancer would be forced to go here. Then count to e2 would be played, and now the king goes to c1. And then when you have the count on the back, almost on the back rank, this is straight up losing. Why? Because there's taunt to f1 check, and you're forced to capture. So it's not like you give up a piece, no, because it captures exactly one square away, so it creates a ghoul in the way, and this is check. If you dare to go here, then this is check, you're forced to get here. Then I would unpromote to, let me show you the line, because this is interesting to show. So Banshee to f5 check, you have nowhere to defend, so you're forced to get here. Then I would unpromote to Banshee with check, and this is cross applesauce and stuff. So very interesting. And you can't even take, else I'm going to take, and I would create a ghoul that would promote it to a tomb, and that would be checkmate. So the king is forced to go anyway, so here or here doesn't matter. So let's see if you, for example, you decide to go here, I just have to go here, and this is checkmate. Incredible. So let's see another variation after this. Go here, 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 and now you go here. Then now I can unpromote immediately to here, but you can try to escape this way. But now I will welcome you with Banshee to f2, and after, if you decide to go here, you're going to have some very, very bad time, because now the count is going up and going to be checkmated this way. So king to f4 should be played here. And now basically you can play some passive move, like, I don't know, maybe Tong context g2. And now you see that he comes with the threat to capture here, and also you have a Tong, like, you're losing the game here. So in this position, Lancer targets d4 is tried. The idea is that if the count dares to get there, then the Lancer would go here and everything would be chained. But you just forgot that when your piece is on the ground, it can't do something. It can't do its stuff. So when there's a check, the king has to react first. So if this is played, actually the Lancer can't. Here this is a bug, because normally the game is just sent to stop, but the analyze mod is bugged for now. It doesn't recognize this as the king. But here, count to e2, I can assure you, is checkmate. You can't do anything like this. And this is not actually seen in the game, and e3Gewinnt just panicked a little. So it decided to play count to d5. And okay, now the game gets crazy, because we have Lancer to f3. And now, I mean, capturing here was a way to go, but you could have taken here. This seems completely crazy, but after Lancer takes f4, then you can capture this counter on b2. And now be very careful, because this threat to capture and get some pawns here. But actually there's an even crazy move. You can decide to capture on g4. Because if this is captured here, there's pawn captures check. And after the king, let's say, runs here, there's check and mate. Incredible. So in this position, after captures, not the right way, excuse me, the other way, I should do it. So after captures, and captures, first you have to defend. And how do you defend this? With this very weird move, Ghoul to f5. So now with this, this game goes crazy, because now there's a lesson going to d4 and to c4, and now you have to hide the king on the best possible, and you have still this in the way, and you try to play against. So very interesting. So the position would be crazy, but in the game we have a Ghoul to takes g5. So now with the exchange of the great pieces, and now okay, the vampires are up a point of material, but the Kobolds can still play. Just you to know, both players had 1 minute on the clock, and I think there was 10 seconds left on the clock when this was the turn of Lolo to play. So here you're going to see some kind of end game in little time, and I have to say that they are high skill. So now we have pawn to f3 trying to kick the Banshee. The Banshee goes back to e6. Now we have rat takes a5, taking care of the pawn. Ghoul to d4, trying to exchange and get the tomb in a better place. We have pawn captures to tomb captures, and now rat to c6, attacking the tomb. So the tank decides to go to c4, but now the rat gets to e5, and you see that it gets closer and closer to the king, attacking the tomb. Now the tomb goes back to goes to c2, attacking this pawn. So what do you do here? Don't care. Now then to h5 is played. So the tomb to d8 is played. Here with this, then it starts to get closer to the king. So you have to be very careful with the position. Here tomb to d8 can be played, but now we have then to g5 check. I mean, if possible, that would be great to defend this pawn. The only problem is that you can't defend this pawn, so that would be taken. So after then to c5 check, we have king to f8, and now we have then to e1, so getting the opposition of it. So we have pawn takes b2, and now we have then to d4. And as this is range 4, and this range 3, this is attacked, so it has to defend. Tomb takes goes to d6 is tried, but now let me show you one of the dirtiest tactics you never get with the Kobolds is then to f4 check. So the king has to run, the king runs to e8, and now the rat burrows here. And believe it or not, this is a fork, because it threats to capture this and capture this at the same time. So can you get this out? Yeah, you can, because now this is tomb to b1 and this is check, so you have to react to check first, even the game is bugged. So here king to e2 stride. Lolo said that he can't actually go here because of the bug, but he wanted to go here. But okay. King to e2 is played, and now we have tomb to d5, and somehow it escaped, but not really, because now it can decide to unburrow on f6 with check. And now the ability of the rack is that when it unburrows, all the pieces on the same rank and row can't capture for 2 turns. So now after this captures straight up a tomb, and now the Kobolds are winning the game. So now we have a tomb to b2 check. So the idea is that they try to get up the game. King to f1. We have tomb to d2, so attacking again. But now we have rat to e3, getting back. Tomb to d3, then to e5. Banshee to d7. I mean, the game is starting to get crazy. We have then to f8 check, king to takes c7, and now then goes to f7, try to get the pin. And now the king goes to d6, and there is a move that has been missed, which is rat to c4. And now it goes with a concrete threat. If the king runs on any square that is controlled by a den, the very simple burrow here would be check because it's threats to go here. So after it goes here, then it captures, it can't capture, and then you're dead. So here in this position after this, you have to be sure on the square you would land to. So the king would run to c6, but then the den goes back on f6 with check. So now the only place you can go is king to b7, but now the den would go on, b6, just here, this is check. Now the king goes on d8, and after den goes back, to d5 with check, and king to d8, then the very simple unborrowed check, you're forced to move, and then you take this, you can't take anymore, and you're straight up winning the game. But here, Lolo wanted to solve as quickly as possible the game, so he decided to capture on d7, check, and after king captures, with then d5, oh, this is a fork, the taunt tries to defend, but unfortunately for you, we have then captures, king captures, and now this is a winning endgame, and you're going to see that the conversion of the endgame is perfectly executed by Lolo, and this is a couple of moves later that we have the checkmate on move 64. So very crazy game and incredible tactics. So if there wasn't this panic, taunt to f4 was just straight up winning and the vampire had won the game. But because the Kobolds is a tricky faction and you don't really know how the mechanics work, you discover it on the way, and with 1 minute on the clock, you have to make choices and not make assumptions. So this concludes this video. I hope you liked it. We're going to see each other next time for another crazy encounter on this round 2 of the Matches New Era tournament. See you then. Bye.